Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, Doctor. Good morning.
My name is Razan. I will be the moderator for today's session. And just a bit of introduction. Today we'll be having a webinar entitled Hybridised the Learning Experience with Flipped-Cooperative Learning. In this session, you will learn how to conduct your online and teaching learning through hybridized learning by utilizing the Flipped-Cooperative Learning. This approach allows students to work individually as well as work in team, be it online or physical, to solve given problems and helps to nurture them as deep learners. Just a little bit of reminder for all the USM staffs participating in this webinar. This session will be conducted in two parts, which is from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. So you will be required to scan your attendance twice today at the end of every session. So we will be giving the link at the end of every session. So there will be 2 times that you have to scan your attendance and fill up the e-survey. So a little bit about Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan, our speaker for today. Dr. Muhammad Tazli is the founder of Sekolah Malaysia. He is passionate in delivering trainings and facilitations regarding to teaching and learning. Dr. Tazli was a former associate professor at UNIMAP in 2021, as well as UTP, where he had served for the past 17 years. He graduated his PhD in Chemical Engineering in 2014 and then appointed as Director for Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at UTP, championing the Student-Centered Learning Pedagogy initiative from 2014 to 2019. To date, Dr. Tazli has delivered more than 100 trainings and as plenary speakers for various teaching and learning events and conferences. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Dr. Tazli.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. I hope you can hear me. Boleh dengar? If you can just write down at the chat section. Okay, with the emoji.
Boleh dengar, Doktor, boleh.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's very good to see you again. I think last week we had a session on the active learning. So for today, we're going to have another session, but it's gonna be a bit longer. But I hope that it's gonna be fulfilling to everyone when we undergo this particular workshop lah. Right. So let me share first the screen. Okay, so the topic today is we are going to look at hybridized teaching with Flipped-Cooperative Learning. So there are few keywords that are very, I think that's gonna be some for your takeaways lah for today, which is we're gonna look at what does it mean by hybrid teaching. We're looking at hybridized. So how we do conduct a meaningful hybrid teaching, for example. And then what is actually Flipped-Cooperative Learning? So this is another term or keyword that could be the takeaway for every one of you. As an overview for this particular workshop, for which we're going to have a look at throughout the whole day. The first one is we're going to look at what is actually hybrid learning is all about. The second one is actually we're going to recap. I think this term has been coined for quite some time already. Flipped classroom, right? I think Prof. Karim and CDAE has been advocating for flipped classroom for quite some years back in the past lah. And then we're going to actually dissect on the deep and surface understanding about our learners. So for those who actually attended the session last week, we have come across the term of deep and surface understanding, and we're going to dissect it further. And then we're going to look at the successful flipped classroom ingredients. So we are going to coin what are actually the ingredients that will make our flipped classroom become successful. And And then there is another term come here where actually there will be a cooperative learning comes in, which will be coupled with flip classroom. So there will be flip cooperative learning. And then we're going to look at how we can assess our students in this particular, if let's say we are using this particular approach or pedagogical approach. And finally, we're going to look at how we can plan for our flip cooperative learning approaches in our class. So how do we set up the plan? How do we set up the lesson plan? What kind of assessment that we should do and so on. A little bit on the ground rules for this workshop, just so that everybody will be notified lah about what we'll be doing during this particular workshop. This workshop will need full participation from everyone, so it works smoothly. So that I hope that everyone could participate, throw out some questions. If let's say you want to ask anything, please do not hesitate to write down in the chat section, or if let's say you want to unmute your microphone and ask at any time, no problem. And you can ask question again, or you want to I actually anticipate that everyone to switch on the camera and unmute microphone during the breakout sessions. There'll be roughly about 3 breakout sessions that we'll be doing. Okay, so I hope that you could participate. But should you not be able to participate in the breakout session, please let everyone know in advance, so that because there are some activities which require a precise numbers of you in the team, right? So it's not simply just macam sit down and listen, but I hope that everyone can participate, because there are some activities that will be doing lah during this time. Just so you know that the training that I always delivered is on the experiential learning part. So for example, like if let's say the students are going to experience those kind of things, these are the similar thing that I'll bring in the workshop, which means that because I feel that it is very effective if let's say we as the educators, we experience it ourselves, only then we know how to deliver it well inside the class instead of just listening to the lecture, right? So get ready to sign up with Canva, because we're going to use Canva as well for some collaborative activities after this. And then we'll be using, if let's say you have additional gadget, for example, tablet or mobile phone, you can use that, because there'll be some question like respond to Mentimeter and so on. So perhaps it will be a good thing if let's say you can have extra more than one gadget, but it's not necessarily. It's not necessary. You can also use your laptop or whatever that gadget that you have in front of you for these activities. Okay, before we proceed, let me actually bring you to this question. If you be able to go to Mentimeter, there is a question that I want to ask you. Okay, how actually COVID-19 pandemic has impacted us in reaching our 21st century learning objectives, in your opinion? Does it stop us, ataupun dia jadi slow down, ataupun macam mana? How does actually COVID-19 here has impacted us lah in terms of reaching our 21st century learning objectives? So when we talk about 21st century learning objective, we want our students to be able to be collaborative, become a critical thinker. We want them to be able to communicate. We want them to be able to be creative, for example. So these are the things that we want to strive for our students, while we on top of like giving them the technical knowledge that is needed for them. So how does actually this COVID-19 has impacted us in trying to do that, to achieve, to make sure that our students are creative, collaborative, be able to communicate well? Does it impact very much, ataupun it's just similar, ataupun it's become better? What do you think? So please respond to this Mentimeter. You go to www.menti.com and use the code 93995258. Okay, 93995258, or you can just click the link on the chat section. Okay. So it is an opportunity for online learning. Student perhaps be more resourceful. We are moving away from traditional pedagogical practices. It's a bit difficult to enhance soft skills and to engage with fellow students or instructors. Yeah, I kind of agree with this. Due to online classes, students have not been able to improve their communication skills. Also true, they are not be able to, most of the time they will just say that my microphone is something goes wrong with that, then they cannot uh, respond to you. Honesty is declining. Student copy paste everything. I agree. Completely agree with you. Learning to use on top of that, they are using like what cost hero. What is it? Cost hero or something like that. A check. They are using check and just actually to make sure that whenever that we give question, somebody else in the worldwide be able to respond to it. They can just purchase it in Shopee, je kan? The access code. Student become more creative and high tech, but some subject really requires hands-on, so need technology like VR for laboratory skill. Okay, I agree. I do agree. Less communicative and expressive student, especially those with inferior complex, and hard to predict during class the acceptance of student towards content from the behavioral analysis. Yes, this is also one another important thing, because we cannot predict what is actually, because the student are at their own space at their own time, and how do we actually make them be able to express themselves and communicate with themselves. Move towards digitalization effectively. Okay, that's a blessing in disguise lah, which means that now all the lecturers are being forced to use online learning. Nak tak nak, we have to proceed with it, right? Requires new assessment method. That is very true as well. We cannot just simply rely on the exams and tests and close-ended assessment. Has to be creative to attract the student during the online class, improve our survival in learning. We have to be more creative, especially to handle opportunist students. Yes, there are also, of course, because of, if let's say for one semester, everybody still in shock and in shock mode, then everybody try to cope, try to but along the way, after 2 years that we have come across this, students can somehow have a pattern for them to spot. Okay, I think lecturer like this, they're gonna use this kind of ways, and then this is the how we can cheat through it. So this is also something that we need to be very careful lah. Transformation of teaching and learning models. It's a new normal for everybody in the teaching approach. Okay, it's a blessing in disguise. We actively use online learning during this pandemic, right? At the beginning, it was chaotic due to uncertainties in teaching method. It challenges the traditional teaching and learning capacity. However, adaptation to situation seemed necessary and effectiveness was at stake, right? So we need, yeah, I mean, after a while, maybe initially we are not sure about how to conduct online learning. Right now, we know maybe at the basic or fundamental, the way how we can conduct lecture is quite easy, right? Relatively easy. And there can be some kind of engagement like this, for example, put question from time to time. But that's just be able to develop maybe their critical thinking. But how about other skills? Teamwork skills. How do we actually develop teamwork skills online, for example? How can we actually improve the students' creativity online? This is something that we need to figure out, because it has to be done by design. It cannot just be done by accidentally, right? Of course, there must be some ways that we could improve this, just to make sure that our students acquire all of these kind of skills, although they cannot come face to face. Digital learning is important, but must have suitable and appropriate gadgets and internet access. No hands-on experience in handling equipment, tired and struggle to be creative teacher. I feel you actually. But I think there's also another opportunity. For example, like we can attend as many training as possible, because it's just online. Last time we need to attend to the place. We need to go to the specific venue in order for us to attend for the training. But perhaps this is also another disadvantage, for example, because we as the educator ourselves, sometimes we try to do so many things in one go. For example, like I have you are attending this workshop at the same time, You have to attend another meeting in another gadget, using another gadget. You have to actually do something else throughout the days and complete some reports, for example, marking some thesis, which is we think that it is overproductive, okay, but it is not productive because when you're doing multitasking, you cannot focus, right? So I hope that you can stay focused here. All right. Okay. Um, this is something that I know that because we are running out of time, but of course, if let's say we want to make sure that we do our best, somehow we need to put extra focus on it lah. That's very important as well. Okay, thank you for the feedback. Students are okay. Students are not be able to enhance their psychomotor skills since practical classes are held online. Quiet and introverted student become more active online. Yeah, I think because the students are masking themselves, kan, kita tak kenal pun. We're not sure about which particular students responding to you and so on. I'm also not sure, for example, like who responded and write what here, kan. That is also an opportunity for the learning because sometimes students wanted to remain anonymous as well. They do not want to be judged somehow, right? So they like that the opportunity to be anonymous and still participate in the learning. Okay, so that's true. So we have seen that actually there are actually some. This if let's say we're looking at schools or even actually is affecting universities. Um, Learning somehow stalls. Actually, you can see that what happened to our schools, to our children, and even learning are not that comprehensive. And then there is a learning inequality because there are also place some of the students have access, some of the students do not have access, for example. And then we're looking at, for example, the dropout rate. Perhaps there is actually it is increases. Okay, even actually some I think university students decided not to continue the studies. And then education supply side, which is actually on the government spending on education falls because they use a lot of money for the for COVID, right? And quality of education also decline. We have to admit that teaching quality also decline. That's also another issue that we have to face. And of course, I must say that we I have to say that online learning we cannot actually compare the online learning with physical face-to-face learning in terms of the efficiency. Um, if let's say it's just for the teaching, for example, like I'm giving lecture and then just for the sake of lecture and then you need some response, it's great, it's okay, it's good to go. But if let's say you are looking for something else beyond that, perhaps it might be a bit tough. It might be a bit difficult. But what we wanted to do our best is just actually trying to close the gap so that the differences is not too big. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize today when we wanted to do, for example, hybrid teaching. We want to conduct hybrid learning, or we want to conduct like some kind of e-flip ataupun teamwork activities online. We want to do that with the aim of trying to close the gap. It's not like simply just to match with whatever that we're doing physical face to face. But that's why it is very necessary. Unless kalau kita tak buat, if let's say we're not doing it, then we are making the gap become bigger. So those are the things that we do not want. So we have to look back into our Industrial Revolution 4.0. Right now, yes, we are actually in the Industry 4.0, for which the gap between one era to another era is become shorter. For example, like between Industry 1.0 to 2.0, perhaps it takes like about 100 years before it's actually be able to reach 2.0, where actually there is a mass production, assembly line, and so on. And then when there is an internet, perhaps it's close a gap. Maybe for after 30 years, 40 years, then we're moving towards okay, because we have actually between industry 2.0 and 3.0 is maybe roughly about 30 years, 40 years. But between industry 3.0 to industry 4.0, it maybe is between 15 years. And perhaps when it comes to industry 5.0 later on, the gap's going to be shorter. So we want actually, when we are preparing our future workforce, we want to make sure that our students, when they graduated, they will be able to fulfill the right skills that is needed for them to do the task with regard to the era itself. If let's say we just continue with just, teaching in one way, just one direction kind of teaching, chalk and talk style, we are actually just making our student be able to fulfill gap in the industry 2.0, which is no longer relevant. So that's why it is very important for us to fulfill all these important skills that we want. When we are moving to industry 4.0, we must make sure that our education, whatever that we give, also moving towards this direction. So the skills that we give to the students, that we try to nurture to the students, also should be able to suit the industry 4.0. Not only the technology that we use, but the skills that we actually give to the student. It's very important to fulfill this era. For example, if let's say we're looking at the top 10 emerging and top 10 declining kind of job, work in the future. For example, like this is the finding from World Economic Forum. Data analysts and scientists, general and operation managers, sales and marketing professionals, software application developers, big data specialists. These are the kind of job that is actually emerging, for which the last 10 years or the last 15 years, we're not be able to predict this kind of job emerging. For example, who think about the emergence of social media experts, for example? Nobody think about that the last 20 years or 15 years. And we think, and you can see that in terms of the job which is declining, for example, like data entry clerk, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll checks, accountants and editors, material recording, postal service clerk. These are actually the declining jobs. So when we talk about fulfilling this kind of jobs, for example, of course, students need very important skills in order for them to fill up the job. Because I think if let's say you can look, for example, if you sign up in LinkedIn, for example, you can see a lot of these kind of jobs appearing, and it requires certain kind of skill sets in order for them to have this job. And what they also found that if let's say you want to develop new skills for the job of tomorrow, if let's say they are just finding skill related to content writing, sales, marketing skills, and people and culture, it just take about 1 to 2 months. And if let's say they want to learn something to do with product development and data and AI skills, it is between 2 to 3 months. And if let's say you want to learn about cloud computing and engineering skills, just need to take 4 to 5 months. So if, for example, if let's say the students feel that, okay, I don't need to go to university, I just need to fulfill my time, find important courses that I can enroll and learn all of the skills, that is relevant, right? I mean, that is actually sufficient for them to go and get the job. So the question is, are we still relevant as the university which provide 3 years courses, 4 years courses, for example? How do we remain relevant to the students so that actually they can learn all these important skills beyond this, for example? Because it might only take 4 to 5 months for them to learn about cloud computing, for example. So they might think, why I have to spend my money to go to university? So that is why it is very important for us to think about what are other skills that I'm going to give to the students. Because in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the technical knowledge, it's just everywhere, right? Even right now, many of the universities, I think even USM are coming out with micro credentials and so on. Students can go on they can just start their work anywhere, and they can from time to time learn some skills here and there. But for those who are actually after, for example, after college and after matriculation, they come into the university and they enroll themselves for the next 3 to 4 years. So what are the, what do you call that? What are the important, what is it that actually that make them stay? What actually that make them attracted to be as a university students, instead of like, you know, just go and find some other courses out there. So that's why it is very important for us to think about what are other skills that I can nurture my students so that they are ready to fulfill the required skills for the future workforce. That is something that we have to think of lah. So it's not simply just giving them the technical knowledge, technical knowledge on what is it and so on, but also very important for us to nurture the right skills as well as the attitude characters for the students when they are actually um, leaving the universities later on. Okay, so I would like to bring you into hybrid learning because there is a keyword of hybrid learning there. But maybe just want to ask you, what do you really understand of hybrid learning? It's okay to be wrong, no problem, okay? But just you can respond what is actually hybrid learning. For those who want to respond in Malay, also fine, no problem. Okay, Dr. Christine, I apologize that anyway, it's okay, no problem. Thank you for notifying us. Okay, online learning plus remote learning, face-to-face plus online. What else? You can also respond to Mentimeter. What is actually hybrid learning? Because from this Mentimeter punya output later, I will actually paste it in the Padlet here, which you'll be using and refer from time to time lah. So that's good. Also good if let's say you can respond to Mentimeter lah. Combination of face-to-face learning and remote learning, a combination of related knowledge for specific goal. Okay. Combination of traditional teaching and technology, non-linear learning. Okay. Online learning plus remote learning plus F2F. Okay. A mixture of physical and online learning, face-to-face. Right. Mix of conventional learning and online learning. Okay. Ada lagi. Learning using different modes of engagement. For example, face-to-face, online, active learning, etc. Okay. A combination of conventional based and online learning. Okay. What else? What do you think? What is actually hybrid learning is all about? Okay, incorporating online learning and technology usage during traditional classes, synchronous and asynchronous activity in teaching and learning. Okay. Face-to-face plus online learning. Various mode of learning activities. Combination of online and face-to-face learning. Apa lagi? Because I know that some of the universities being tasked to conduct so-called hybrid teaching. They call it hybrid teaching. I'm not sure about USM. How is it going on? Are you actually being asked to do so, for example? But I know some universities, some colleges, even schools, actually they were tasked to do this, what we call as hybrid teaching. And I want to share something to you lah, so that you really have a clear idea about what is actually hybrid learning is all about. Blended learning with synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning. Okay, that's a good one. Physical and online learning. Okay, physical and online learning is the key, but the way how we conduct is also something that we have to be very careful and think about it. Okay, let's have a look at it. Okay, so this is the definition that about online, when we call it hybrid learning or hybrid teaching. There is a spectrum of online learning. Okay, spectrum of online learning spectrum. Start first with actually face-to-face, and the high end of the other side is fully online. Okay, it's fully online. For example, like all instruction, interaction, and activities take place online, or may not include a face-to-face orientation or proctored exams. Okay, So this is actually fully online. But face-to-face, okay, face-to-face is a class session which is 100% in a traditional bricks and mortar classroom, which means that students need to be there at the specific venue. They need to come there. And while in the class, they can use the technology or they can not use the technology just to enhance their learning. So that is actually what we call as face-to-face. Okay. And then in between that, okay, this is what we call the gray area of it. Okay. We have actually what we call as blended learning. So blended learning ni, the class, it takes place in the classroom, but actually we use technology to facilitate activities. For example, like after the class session, you just share a forum where the students need to respond in the e-learning, for example. That is what we call as blended learning. Just blend it. It doesn't have to be, for example, like during this particular session, you are making it physical during this for reaching this particular outcome. But for the next learning outcome, you want to do it online, for example. So that is considered as blended learning. But for hybrid learning, okay, hybrid learning ni, it is an online and face-to-face instruction are integrated, okay, with a substantial amount of seat time in the traditional classroom substituted with internet-based activities. What is actually happening here? For example, we're talking about one learning outcome, right? If let's say we have one learning outcome and we want the students to participate we want to achieve that particular learning outcome. So there are things that is very that there are things that we can do it in the classroom so that students learn effectively while they are in the classroom. And there are also things that we can just substitute the activity in the classroom and we bring it online, and because we believe that students can benefit better by using it online. Okay, so that is actually the definition of what is hybrid learning is all about. It's not just it has to be in a way that it's a bit systematic. Okay, it's a bit systematic. So it doesn't have it needs to be some kind of smooth lah in terms of the transition between classroom and internet-based activities is for example, like if let's say we are not doing internet-based activities or we just depend on the classroom activities, the learning outcome may not be able to be achieved. So that's the needs for the hybrid classroom. For example, if we look at a glance lah, at a glance, for example, like if let's say the students are in the class, okay, but before they come to the class, perhaps they are doing individual online learning first. And then maybe when they come to the class, they are doing facilitated discussion, okay, where actually they participate in the discussion to do some kind of activities, or they are actually doing some kind of project or problem-based learning during that time, or perhaps they are going for a field trip in order for them to solve the problems needed. But when they come back from their field trip or when they complete their project or problem-based learning, they are having some kind of online discussion in a forum just to make sure that they get some kind of just to reinforce the understanding about what actually that they have discovered earlier, or perhaps they can use VR or AR in order for them to learn some units, for example, that they are not sure of when perhaps when they go to the field trip. Before they go to the field trip, they may do like virtual field trip first, for example. Perhaps before they are doing the experiment, they are using something that is virtual first. And they will come back later on, they will be doing project presentation inside the class. So that is actually making a hybrid teaching as a whole. So hybrid teaching ataupun hybrid learning is not simply, for example, like you conduct a lecture in the class, some students come to the class, some students stay it online. That is not the definition of hybrid learning. That is a definition of a hybrid classroom. Okay, so there is a difference between hybrid classroom as well as hybrid learning. Hybrid learning, it makes full use of it. For example, like online learning, for example, individual learning. Individual learning, it doesn't have to happen in the class. It is best happen if, let's say, students just listen to the lecture on their own. They can pause, they can actually rewind, they can actually do it again, repeat again and again in order for them to understand the lecture. And facilitated discussion is best, for example, than physical. Problem-based learning project, for example, perhaps is best to be done physical. Field trip, also it is best to be done physical, for example. So these are the activities that is actually when you join together, it makes a really meaningful learning for the students. But if let's say you're being tasked to do hybrid classroom, for example, for example, some of the students come to the class, some of the students stay at the stay at the hostel. That is not a hybrid teaching. That is not a definition of hybrid teaching or hybrid learning. That is just a definition of hybrid classroom. Okay, hybrid classroom. So the pedagogy that you are using is still a lecture, teacher-centered kind of way, but it's just a method of the student where their location is makes a difference. For me, conducting hybrid classroom is a bit messy. Okay, it's a bit messy because sometimes it may give the disadvantage for the students who are actually not attended physically. So it gives more advantage for the student who actually attended physical. But for those who are actually being online, it depends to a lot of things. For example, like in terms of the connectivity, in terms of the voice, for example, the voice of the lecturer who are teaching, that is also very important. And then the technology that are using inside the class, even to the extent that if let's say you want to conduct a good hybrid classroom, you may need more than one professor or a teacher inside the class themselves, because one of them need to be at the, for example, at the computer to entertain the question from the student, for example, right? Ataupun unless you have a very high tech punya technology so that the students can ask question and everybody inside the class can listen. So that's why I think that hybrid classroom is a bit messy and it's a bit difficult to be conducted. But if let's say you want to conduct a hybrid teaching, there are several pedagogies that we can actually use just to make sure that the students can learn effectively. For example, if let's say you want to conduct, if let's say you want to reduce the number of the students coming to the class, if let's say we have 100 students, right? 100 students. So why not, for example, we give them a video for them to watch our lecture. We split them out. Maybe 30 in a class. 30 to come, and then there will be some kind of activities for them just to reinforce their understanding on it. That could be done, and that could be and then everybody will experience the same thing. Okay, everybody will experience the same thing instead of like some of them are not actually some of them just attend fully online, for example, which may actually give some kind of disadvantage to them. At the same time, we can still maintain lah in terms of the physical distancing ke whatsoever kan, so we can still do that. So that's how hybrid teaching ni, hybrid learning is much more what we say that impactful practices compared to just conducted hybrid classroom. So that is actually hybrid teaching is all about. Anybody would like to ask question about this tak? Ada yang tak clear? You can just unmute your microphone and ask if let's say you have anything. Also, you can write on the chat. So, why do we conduct hybrid teaching? Okay, why do we conduct hybrid teaching? First of all, because we want to allow the student to experience the best of both physical face-to-face class and online learning. So when we're doing it physical, okay, they can experience something that is very beneficial for them. For example, like doing activities, facilitated discussion, project-based, and so on. And when they are attending online, they can have their own time, for example, to do the learning. They can actually just, for example, at 11 o'clock p.m., right? Before they go to sleep, they want to study on something. So instead of going to the class, they can just be in front of the computer and go through the material, for example. So that's how they can experience the best for the online learning. And it also to allow greater flexibility in deciding how the intended learning outcome best achieved. So from here, we as the educators, we as the lecturers, as the teachers, we can actually decide how best that, for example, if we are looking at your learning outcome right now, okay, your learning outcome is for the students to do this, blah, 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 blah. So you can decide, okay, should I make some kind of blend here? Because blended learning is very vague. It's, for example, like blended learning, okay, I can just mix and match here and there, for example. But for hybrid learning, we really need to plan for it. For example, like, okay, I want to conduct maybe flip classroom approach. So I'm going to give videos for the students, and then there are activities that I'm going to plan so that they can come to the physical face-to-face class, so that they'll be able to um, they'll be able to do it effectively lah masa dalam class face-to-face class tadi. Okay, and then baru dapat, then they can achieve the learning outcome that is needed. Okay, Dr. Razif, I just wonder if all the students are comfortable with hybrid learning. It depends. Actually, because most of the time, as a start, some of the students will retaliate in the first place, because there's a lot of things juga. Sometimes there are a lot, instead of just, listening to the lecture and do nothing, now they have to participate. So that might be not comfortable for some of the students at the first time. But that's where actually we need to look on how we can scaffold the students so that they can adjust into it. Of course, some of us doing, when there are some changes, we are not comfortable with the changes, right? We need to actually going through it, feel it through, even to the extent after one semester only, then we feel okay, that makes sense for me. And so that's how I go back to that lah, in terms of the takes of the student in terms of hybrid learning. How does blended learning differs from hybrid learning? As I mentioned earlier, blended learning, you can decide, okay, for example, like today I'm going to conduct a lecture in my class, and after that, let's say I'm going to conduct a forum. So forum, I'm going to put online e-learning. So the student respond to the forum. But we don't have any specific, and then in terms of when we do that, we don't have in mind that actually, okay, which one is best for this particular outcome to be achieved. For example, if let's say we are doing a forum, why do we do it? Why do we do that forum, for example? And then have we actually analysed whether should we do the forum inside the class, physical, ataupun memang purposely we just want to make it blended and we do it online. But for hybrid teaching, there is a specific intended learning outcome that we want to achieve, and we need to systematically decide, for example, what particular mode that we should use. Okay, for example, if let's say we're thinking that, okay, the discussion best to be done inside the class, so we bring it to the class, we conduct in the class. The online the listening to the lecture or whatever, okay, perhaps we just do it online because it's just a lecture, so that the students can repeat from time to time again and again. So that's how hybrid teaching a bit different lah compared to blended learning, because it allows us to decide what's best for the students. Okay. And the third one is actually to make, and why hybrid teaching is for us to make full use of the campus resources in supporting individual and collaborative learning experiences. So that's why we are actually conducting hybrid teaching. As I said lah, kalau ikut spectrum dekat sini, this is clear, right? This is very clear. High end of face-to-face, we are very clear with it. Online, fully online, we are very clear with it. But the gray area falls into here lah. There is no distinctive, clearly difference between blended and hybrid learning. But for sure here, when you are using blended learning, it's not when we actually deciding on blended learning, we are not in our mind, we are not deciding whether this way is going to achieve the learning outcome or not. We just want to make sure that sometimes the blended learning, what we use blended learning to, is just complementary to our face-to-face activities. But when we start to decide on using the hybrid teaching, okay, hybrid teaching is to make sure that which particular mode is the best to make sure that the learning outcome is achieved. So that's the first question that we ask when we are conducting hybrid learning. So what can we do to make sure that we can achieve the best out of it? For example, if let's say you want to conduct a physical face-to-face activities, we can do team-based problem solving. We can do team-based activities. We can do individual progress check. For example, that lecturer moving from one to one students just to check in terms of the individual progress. We can have an inquiry-based field trip, guided discovery activities. For example, like the students were tasked to do some kind of discovery activities and they need some kind of facilitation. And they can also do project presentation and role play. So these are the things that is best to be conducted using face-to-face. How about online? So for example, like if let's say you want to have a forum and discussion, a discussion which actually take a lengthy period lah. Maksudnya from time to time people can put points, for example. That could not be done inside the class because the class have a specific time, right? For example, from 9 to 10, there is a discussion. But then if let's say you want to do online and you want to discussion to be lengthy, for example, maybe take days, for example, then it is best done online. Individual reading and discovery. So it is being best done online. For example, the students can have their own time to to go through their own reading materials and make their own discovery on their own. Online assignment, online global engagement. For example, here, this is where actually you get the best. If let's say we allow for example, like the activity of adjunct lecture. Okay, adjunct lecture, just if let's say you are giving them a problem based learning, you give them a problem to the students, and in order for the students to solve the problem, they need to engage with someone who are actually not there. So online global engagement, online meeting, for example, online engagement is something that they can do. They can, you can arrange a session with an adjunct lecturer who are actually far away from here, and then just give some session for them. This is actually being done online. Or perhaps, if let's say you want to make a global, if let's say you are collaborating with different institution at the different part of the world, for example, and you want the students to get engaged with each other, perhaps we can also do online global engagement, okay, and online learning material review. So these are the things that is best could be possibly done online compared to if let's say we are doing it face to face. So you can see that some of these activities, if you combine it together, then perhaps you can give a much more meaningful experience to this learning experience for the student in terms of hybrid teaching tadi. Okay, so that is why when actually we talk about hybrid teaching just now, okay, when we talk about hybrid teaching just now, there are actually many pedagogical approaches that suit with hybrid teaching as long as we are combining between face-to-face and online. So what I'm going to bring you today, okay, we're going to look at flipped cooperative learning approach, which actually can suit hybrid teaching strategies. Okay, hybrid teaching strategies, which can suit with this. There are also other actually approaches that we can use for hybrid teaching, such as if let's say we are deciding on project-based learning or problem-based learning, we can also use that as part for hybrid teaching. But here during for this part for today's session, I'm going to bring you in terms of the flipped cooperative learning approach, for which it also suit with hybrid teaching punya strategy. So let's watch this particular video, okay? And then this is a recap lah for those who actually have understood flipped classroom. Ada tak kat sini yang belum pernah dengar about flipped classroom? Can I ask? You can respond to chat. Ataupun you know already about what is a flipped classroom is all about. Anybody? Dr. Anusha, you have heard about flipped classroom before, or you have conducted flipped classroom?
Yes, doctor. I have conducted for some portion only, not the whole course.
Okay, right.
Certain.
Dr. Razif, pernah guna? I've used a straightforward flipped classroom. Okay, student watch the pre-recorded lecture, then watch. We have to face-to-face activities. Ada yang tak pernah dengar, first time dengar. Pernah dengar tapi tidak pernah practice in class. Heard only the term, don't know the actual definition. Okay, so let's watch this video. This is okay, that's good. Maybe pernah buat tapi tak sedar. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, let's have a look at this video, and after that we're going to discuss further lah. So okay,
Every day, thousands of teachers deliver the exact same lesson in class to millions upside down. Through home, typically using video lessons on YouTube, and then apply the knowledge by solving problems and doing practical work in class. Modern schools who flipped their classroom report many benefits. 1. It allows all students to learn at their own pace, as videos can be watched again. 2. It's more efficient, as students enter the classroom prepared to contribute. 3. It enriches the classroom, as more time can be spent on group work and projects. 4. Doing homework in class allows students to help each other, which benefits both the advanced and less advanced learners. Flipping also brings changes for teachers. Traditionally, teachers engage most with the confident students who ask questions. Teachers don't need to give the same lecture over and over again. Again, they gain more time to focus on the needs of their class. Many scholars also argue, as all kids get the same attention when doing their homework. Currently, kids with caring parents, older siblings at home, or expensive private tutors have a clear advantage over those who don't. Let us know in your classroom. If you are a student, let us know if you would prefer
flipped classroom is all about. So perhaps maybe you, from your understanding when you watch the video, maybe you can coin what is actually a flipped classroom according to your understanding from that video lah. Maksudnya you can also share with us, everyone. What do you think from the video itself? What do you think is actually flipped classroom is all about? You can respond to the Mentimeter. Okay. Saya mention earlier lah, maksudnya Mentimeter ni, later on, I will save the result and I will share it together dekat Padlet. So it's good to respond to Mentimeter. What do you think flipped classroom is all about according to your understanding? And why do you think, for example, like flipped classroom ni is something that is quite useful for your student? Learning happens before or outside the classroom and knowledge is applied during the class. Okay, students really take charge in their learning, not passive. It is a student-centered learning approach. Okay, it is flipped between self-learning and class learning. What else? Almost the same. Because it's actually student-centered learning is a very big term, and there are actually different kind of approaches inside there. Online lecture note and also discussion, class face-to-face, so maybe flexible for both students and lecture. Okay. Personally, after applying Flip, it's more conducive and more engaging when discussed in class. Students become more independent in their learning and confident as they are confronted with experiential learning in the classroom. Okay. A type of blended learning where students are introduced to content at home and practice in classroom, providing relevant materials before the session of class to enable students get pre-understanding about the topic, in-class activity to enhance their understanding and applications, mixture of learning experience, prior study by students before entering class, shifting to honors learn to learn one student while lecturers guide, giving more time for students to apply knowledge learned to solve specific problem, letting students to lead the discussion with guidance, reverse of traditional teaching, more active learning during classroom time, student self-learning first prior to the class, allowing the student to prepare themselves and self-understand. The lecturer would clarify any misunderstanding queries and put more emphasis on important aspects of the topic. Okay. Now I realize that I've done it before. For my PBL based class, I provide some learning material before the class. Then we work on the case together during the class. Ada je yang pernah buat. Okay. Sometimes kita je yang tak, we are not, for example, like we are not sure kan. But for example, if let's say we have given the students some reading materials, ask them to read, and then after that, when they come to the class, there is no more lecture. There is a activity based, so that just to make sure that they understand, have a deeper understand about it, that can be considered as well as flip. For flip classroom, not necessarily, it does not necessarily about video. It can be many things. Like for example, like assignment to read textbook, assignment to read journals, for example, or case studies. And after that, when they come to the class and do activities just to deepen their understanding on it, so that is considered as a flip classroom activities. Provided learning materials allow flexibility for students to arrange their learning, lecturer will assist during discussion session. This is one of the understandings lah, some of the understanding about it. Okay. Anybody else would like to respond about what is flipped classroom according to your understanding? Individual learning and active teamwork during class. Okay, so there is a combination between individual and active teamwork in the class. So this is where actually I'm going to share with you a combination between flipped classroom as well as cooperative learning approach. So what is cooperative learning? I will also share with you afterwards. I normally give them reading material, and in class we have smaller group activities. Okay, students do the activities, and at the end the lecturer will help them to connect all the dots. Okay, right. Good sharing from every one of you. So let's have a look on the. This is a typical flipped classroom approach. Typical flipped classroom approach. Let's have a look at the Bloom taxonomy. This is where I usually define what is flipped classroom is all about lah. So flipped classroom ni I always refer back to the Bloom taxonomy. Okay, Bloom taxonomy, for which we have a level of level 1, remembering, understanding, applying, and then we have analyzing, evaluating, and finally creating, right? So from this Bloom taxonomy, usually this is usual. Usually what happen in the traditional classroom, the activities that happen in class ialah activity remembering, understanding, and applying, because we just conduct lecture. So when we conduct the lecture, the students will only listen. They will just only listen to us, and they will try to understand it. And then perhaps they're doing some kind of, when we show them some exercise and we ask them to give them some kind of tutorial, they need to do that, right? So they are doing this kind of activities inside the class. But later on, you give homework. When they were given homework, perhaps the homework is a bit complex. The homework is a bit more open-ended, and for which they need to discuss on their own. They need to do it on their own, for example. So this is the activities where actually analyzing, evaluating, and creating is being done outside of the class. That is typical traditional classroom. So when we have a flipped classroom, we are flipping it. For example, like the remembering, understanding, and applying, it happened outside the class, which means before the class start. So that the students will need to listen to the lecture. The student will need to do some kind of quiz, for example, just to check their understanding, whether they're knowing or not, and all other activities which is on the high order thinking skills activities are being done inside the class and facilitated by the lecturers or by the teachers. So this is the idea of flipped classroom is all about. So if let's say we're referring to this diagram, okay, this is the diagram that was created sometimes, I think 6 years ago, when I was in UTP. The flipped classroom is started first is actually when the students need to watch the video or go through the materials and something like that. And then when they come into the class, of course, the lecturer is not supposed to start with the activities. perhaps we can recap first. Recap means that the students are doing some activities just to recap what they understand about what they have watched before. So that is something that we could do just to support the students or make the student recall back what they have learned before. And then we will proceed with some kind of activities. So this is where actually the student will be doing some activities just to deepen their understanding. And after that, perhaps the student need to do some kind of presentation or reportings and so on. And finally, there will be closure. So that is actually the typical flipped classroom, how this could be done lah, to ensure that the students can have different ways of learning. Okay. Now, I would like to bring you to some reading activities. Some reading activities for which I would like you to read this part. Okay, there is an article that I'm going to give you. So the article that I'm going to give you is for you to understand the deep learning approach. Who are actually in that text is a deep learner, who is actually the surface learner, and strategic learning approach. So and after that, we are going to actually identify who is the deep learner from the article, and how do we ensure the surface and strategic learners are motivated to acquire deep approach. Okay. So this is the link. I'm going to give you this link. We're going to actually use a lot of this link Padlet nanti. So keep it to yourself. So the link here, I would like you to click on item 1. When you click on Padlet dekat chat, I would like you to click on item 1. So item 1 ni, I would like you to read this dialogue, just one page dialogue. And the same page, be able to click the link and then go to the text. And then lepas tu dapat baca. I hope that you can find time, maybe for the next 2 minutes. Please read the text here. And then when you read the text, after that, try to think and answer this question. Okay. The question is, who is the deep learner from this article? Siapa strategic learner? Siapa surface learner? Try to think of that. Why is it? And then maybe perhaps, how do we ensure the surface and strategic learners are motivated to acquire deep approach? Okay, so please spend your time 2 minutes from now. Try to read this dialogue. Surface is Ryan. Okay, surface is Ryan. Perhaps Dr. Chia, can you share with me why do you think Michelle is a deep learner, surface is Ryan? Can you unmute my microphone and share with everyone?
Okay, thanks. Michelle is deep because I think she's really concerned about the content. I mean, she really wants to learn everything, and everything is important. Then Alex is strategic because he only wants to. I mean, he analyzes he analyzes the past year questions and all that from the lecturer, and then he strategizes which topics are important.
Okay.
And then Ryan is surface because he only wants to the bare minimum lah, enough to pass lah. So it's a surface learner lah. So that's my
Okay,
response. Thank you.
In your class, right, Dr. Chia? In
Yeah.
your class, how do you find the student? Are there these three categories in your class?
Uh, my class is actually quite big. I mean, last semester I taught a big class. The deep learners are the better students seem to be the deep learners lah. And the surface learners, we don't know them because I think they're all lost somewhere. They don't make themselves known, unfortunately. But maybe among the students, maybe they do share. But to the lecturer, we don't really know whether they are surface learners. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right. The Caroliniza, in your class, perhaps you can share how do you find the ratio in terms of the deep learner, surface learner? Okay. Ni, kita boleh tanya, contohnya ada, maybe I can ask ni, Dr. Maziani. How do you find your class? For example, like who is actually, boleh identify tak staff, whether your students surface ke?
I also teach a very big class,
Okay.
programming. I identify the deep learner when through their assignments, when they present because I asked them to present using videos lah, because it's very difficult to read the codes, very long codes, programming.
Right.
So when they present using videos, I identify the deep learners where they can actually explain what happened behind the codes.
Right.
Rather than just reading out the codes. So those who are reading out the codes without telling what the code do, then those are the surface lah. Strategic will be those who actually understand but do the bare minimal to just pass or fulfill the requirement of the assignment based on the rubrics that I provided lah. So
Okay.
yeah, that's all I can evaluate them lah in terms of their response in assignment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, how do we ensure these surface and strategic learners are motivated to acquire deep approach? How do we make sure that the students who actually what do you call that, a surface and strategic learners before, strategic learners ni we can actually notice themselves, we can find themselves. No problem, Dr. Karuniza. We can actually find the strategic learners. Strategic learners ni is the one who actually got good grades. Okay, they always get good grades before, and when they were asked to do more, they will be the one who complain. For example, like if let's say you conduct some kind of approaches, right, which required them to think more, which is not which is not easy for them to score good grades, they will complain. These are the students who will complain because they will find, dia kata, kenapa buat susah-susah when actually I can just do this and then I can get good grades, for example. So these are actually the category of strategic learner. Okay. And surface learner, of course, they don't care, they don't bother. As long as they pass, as long as they got some passing mark, that's all. They just want to maintain at that level. So the question right now is, how do we ensure that the surface and strategic learners are motivated to acquire deep approach? Perhaps anybody can share your experience or what you have done to transform the students. Of course, some of these students, it will take time. It's not easy just to transform in one activity and suddenly they become a deep learner, right? But what are the things that we can possibly do just to make sure that they become a deep learner like Michelle? We can make sure that Alex and Ryan learn like Michelle. That's how we wanted to do. Anybody would like to share? Perhaps Dr. Koo BE, Want to share?
Perhaps need to create some activities that help them to learn in that way.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Chow Wen-Xiang, you want to share anything? Perhaps anything that
I think basically it's depending on the lecturer. If let's say the lecturer then we are very hard to turn the strategic learner because they know the style of the lecturers. If you really want to do something, then the lecturer should be creative, I would say. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Perhaps Dr. Khairul, Dr. Khairul Muhammad Fazil. You want to share anything?
Thank you, Doctor.
Ah,
My experience, I teach mostly postgraduate students, so adults, matured students. So I don't have this kind of problem because most of the time they already prepared for the class. So yes, as what people said that we do have to be more creative lah, in order to solve this problem. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Right. So you can see that Dr. Razif provide them opportunity to own the knowledge gain and share. Okay. Strategic learner is very smart student need to manipulate their potential via more engaging activities. Dr. Roslinda. Usually I use PBL approach, making them to do the work and not just understanding. Okay. Ensure assessment topics are well distributed. Okay, so these are some of the suggestions to make sure that the students acquire deep approaches. One of them, I agree. Actually, when we give them activities for them to participate. But kita ni, for example, kita ni kena hati kering sikit lah. As a lecturer, we need to be hati kering sikit when we are conducting this because at the first start, of course, some of them will be complaining because they need to do more. They feel that why not just give us the lecture and so on. So that is why it's very important to prep them lah, to make them understand why we are doing this, especially the big why of doing this kind of activities and approaches. Because I found that if let's say the students are not being informed, that they are not being well informed about why we are doing PBL, why we're doing flipped classroom and so on, they will somehow retaliate because we have to know that generally, okay, generally we will not find a lot of deep learner inside our class. But we want to turn our majority of our students to become deep learners. So that is actually the challenge that we are facing. We will have a lot of strategic learner as well as surface learner. Strategic learner yang score even 3.9, 3.8, they are still strategic learners because they know how to manipulate the situation. So, but then we need to turn them to become a deep learner because only then they'll be able to become technically competent with whatever that we are teaching them. So yes, perhaps we need to be more creative and then we need to be more, we will need to think about more engaging activities that they could participate. So, why it is very important for us to move into a deep learners because we want to make sure that the deep learners ni, kalau if let's say for example you have this trait lah, will this be in the exam? How can I easily remember this? A lot of memorization, exam oriented. I think the lecturer didn't teach this at all. Is this counted for the coursework mark? If let's say you have this kind of questions all the time, these are actually the questions from the surface and strategic learners. Okay, because why do we want to make sure that our students achieve the deep learners is if let's say the students are only a surface learner, according to Paris intellectual development model, if let's say the students are surface learner, they will come to you and they just say, I know I can learn this if you just tell me what I need to know. They are not bothered. They're not bothered to learn beyond that. Of course, in ourselves, if you reflected back in ourselves, we are sometimes can be a surface learner as well as can be a deep learner in different things. Okay. For example, I am a surface learner in DIY. Me lah. I don't like to actually really do all the DIY stuff. As long as I know how to fix things, how to nail things, enough for me lah. Tapi going into the detail, I don't want it. So that is me. When it comes to DIY, I am a surface learner. But of course, when they are learning their own disciplines, we want to make sure that we bring them towards becoming a deep learner, because this is something that is going part of the career that they are actually going for, right? Part of the direction that they're going for. So we want to turn them to become a deep learner, because a surface learner as well, um, kalau surface learner ni dia again lah, dia macam as long as I got the degree certificate, that's all, right? So that's why they have this kind of mentality. I know I can learn this if you just tell me what I need to know. Kalau another level of surface learner, they will come to you and they just say, okay, whatever that he say is true, whatever this person say is true. Or maybe, oh, this is wrong, everybody wrong, everybody is equally wrong. So that is actually another group of surface learner. Okay, everyone has an opinion, so all are equal. Students may distrust authority, reason, abstraction, and sign. So these are the category of the surface learner. But if let's say you want to develop a deep learner, we want to ensure that the students start to see the existence of disciplinary reasoning through criteria or arguments, which means here the students know that in order for them to make a choice, okay, in order for them to come up with one solution, they need to make a choice. They need to make a decision, and they need to make a justified decision. So that is where actually the student will come into relativism. And when the students start to be able to connect from one topic to another topics, for example, that is where actually the students appear in this category, and that is considered as deep learner. And another level, the highest level of intellectual development stage is what we call as commitment. Commitment here means that the students realize they have to make a choice. Even actually, things doesn't come, things just come, a solid object come to them, and they still need to make decision in order for them to uh, they still need to make the decision. Okay, if let's say come into their own life later on, they come certain kind of options, they need to come up with clear judgment why this particular solution need to be taken into consideration, instead of like, for example, I propose this and use this and straight away just use this without any other options, kan? So that is where actually this particular student which achieve the level of commitment, they know that in order for them to make a decision, there must be choices. There must be choices, and they must make commitment of which particular choice that they should pick. And in order for them to pick that choice, they must have a reason. Okay, they must actually find judgment and reasoning out of that in order for them to pick that particular choice. So that is in terms of commitment. So if let's say our student have reached this level, then they will be able to become a good deep learner lah. They be able to achieve a deep learning punya stage. And that is why it is why we are doing this kind of pedagogical approaches, different kind of approaches, so that the students will build up in terms of dia punya cognitive thinking dia to become a deep learner themselves. So that those are the things that we want. The deep learner also can be measured by solo taxonomy. This is what I highlighted last week during the active learning punya session. Okay, for which sebenarnya when we actually conducted, when we actually want to assess the students, okay, we can use what we call as structured of observed learning outcome taxonomy. Okay, solo or solo taxonomy, for which we can see, okay, which particular students belong to this category, whether they are surface or deep understanding. I think I like what Dr. Maziani shared just now, right? About using programming, and she developed some tasks, videos, and then have a rubric, a clear rubric on it. That is, whenever that we develop rubric for our students punya assessment, okay, for student assessment, it should be able for us to it should be able to allow us to distinguish whether these particular students are surface understanding or actually have a deep understanding. And of course, we want to highly reward our students who have actually deep understanding. So for example, like if let's say you have a task given to the student, okay, you have a task given to the student, or you ask students a certain question. If let's say the students are not sure about that topic, that means the students are pre-structural level. If let's say the students have only one idea about it, then this is where actually the students is unistructural level. And if let's say the student have several ideas, but they are not connected, this is what we call as multi-structural level, and this particular student fall into surface understanding. But when the students start to be able to connect, okay, when they learn this particular topic, and then that next week they're going to learn another topic, and then they be able to connect what is actually the continuation from this topic to another topic. This is where actually the students start to reach relational level. And at the extended abstract level, the student can start to relate what they are learning beyond something even which is not being taught inside the class. They'll be able to relate it to the several things outside when they have learned before, or what they have observed or see. So this is where actually the student have reached the highest level of deep understanding lah, which is what we call as at the extended abstract level. So if let's say you want to develop an assessment and develop a rubric, perhaps you may want to consider that the student who have higher, what they call that, a deeper understanding about it should be rewarded better lah. Kalau compare dengan if let's say we give close-ended assessment before, if you remember lah, before COVID, BC, before COVID, we give them a close-ended exam, right? Especially for engineering, like I taught before, there will be a question, and the students need to apply some equation, put in some numbers inside the equation, and after that, they need to justify something why, what that number means lah, something like that. So, the process of getting daripada awal sampai habis tu, perhaps they just may need to only come up with one similar answer. So most of the students will just need to plug in the numbers and then use the equation and get the numbers right, and then they will get full mark, for example. Even actually the question of justification to perhaps maybe 5 out of 25 marks ataupun 3 out of 25 marks. Sedangkan justification tu is very, very important for us to assess whether these students is actually a deep learner ataupun dia a surface learner. But we cannot do much in a close-ended kind of assessment. So by doing close-ended assessment like that, it is very difficult for us to distinguish which particular student who have achieved deep understanding or which particular student are actually a strategic learner, because they have actually revised it, they have gone through this, dia dah buat dia dah spot exam question, for example. These students still be able to answer it. That's why if you ask me, I actually I actually enjoy of giving open-ended assessment for the students and open-ended activities for the students, because I know this is where actually I can evaluate which particular students are having a deep learner, which particular students are surface learners. And therefore, by doing these activities continuously, I will be able to scaffold the surface learners also to become a deep learner. This is what I believe lah. So yes, that's very important for us to think a lot of open-ended activities for them, so that they'll be able to achieve a deep learner punya stage. So that's why the pedagogical approach, such as using project-based learning, problem-based learning, flipped classroom, for example, this would allow the student to achieve a deep learning, becoming deep learners themselves. And but it cannot be just one off lah. It has to be a continuous, and we need to we need to somehow be persistent lah, consistent in using that. Okay. So when we talk about flipped classroom just now, okay, before that, I would like to actually form a team. All right, form a team, and every one of you should participate lah, to be as part of the team. I'm going to form, I think roughly we have 77 minus, how many CDAE staff ada kat sini? May I know?
Yang co-host semua CDA staff.
Okay, yang co-host semua CDA staff. Alright. Okay, that's good. And then yang lain-lain tu saya akan actually masukkan dalam team yang berbeza. Okay, roughly I will put maybe 5 lah kot. 5 members, maybe I'll try up to 6 lah kot. 6. Sebenarnya kalau boleh saya tak nak lebih daripada 5, tapi because of the numbers as well, mungkin ada juga nanti ada komitmen lain. So I'll try to put 6. So 6 times 12. So I'm going to put 12 groups right now. 12 kali 16 kali 6. Okay, I'm going to form 12 groups randomly. So what you're going to do in your team later on, first thing first is I'm going to allow to every one of you to break the ice. So what you're going to do is in your team later on, you need to actually you need to discuss what is your, you need to discuss, you need to explain satu, what is your name, where you are from, okay, and then 3 things about you and one must be a wrong one. Lepas tu dalam team members tu you need to guess which one is the wrong one. Okay, contohnya macam sekarang lah saya akan explain about myself. My name is Muhammad Razli Azizan. Okay, I'm from Perlis. I'm from Perlis. 3 things about me. Okay, I'm the eldest one in the family. I've been to Sweden. I've been to Finland by cruise from Sweden. And number 3, my children are taking care of cats, but I don't like cats. Okay, so which one is wrong? Can you guess? Okay.
You like cats.
I'm not sure I like cats. Actually, no, not really. I don't like cats. Actually, so but my children love cats, not me. That is right. That is right. The wrong one is number 1. I'm not the eldest one. I'm the second one in my family. So that's the practice you should do. Nanti bila I put you in the breakout session, everyone take turn to do that lah. 3 things about you, one must be wrong, and let everybody guess which one is wrong. Okay. And after that, after you do the activities, we're going to do some team names, logo and motto. So every one of you will have a team names, logo and motto. And then after that, during that time as well, you need to write down your team's rules and regulation. So what is the do and don'ts in your team? Do what? Do, for example, appreciate everybody's idea. Don't, for example, like please make sure be on time. And then everybody should sign the charter lah. Maksudnya towards the end, at the bottom of the line tu, you have to sign it. So I'm going to give you later. I'm going to give you a Canva link later. So kejap lagi saya akan tambah group kat sini. So team 1 nanti siapa yang masuk room 1 akan pergi kat team 1 and you be able to edit later on letakkan nama, team names, team members and the rules and regulation and so on lah based on the requirement that I put here. Okay. How many of you have not been using Canva before? Anybody can share? Pernah tak guna Canva? Okay. Kalau tak apa, yang tak pernah guna, saya akan bagi peluang untuk gunalah. And I'm going to share with you, this is also a tool that you can allow the students to collaborate. Kalau contohnya bila buat breakout activities and so on, you can also collaborate later on. Okay, since it's 10:30, we're going to break a while. Kita break sekejap dalam masa 5 minit. I think maybe 10 minutes lah, 10 minutes. And we will start again at 10:40. So, masa 10:40 tu nanti, I will actually put you in the group session, in the breakout activities. And lepas tu, we will have another 20 minutes just to complete the task and finish by 11. Boleh Okay, so we team CDAE kita pause kejap, kita break kejap for 10 minutes. Okay, dah 10.40. Right. So, sekarang saya share screen balik. Okay, so sekarang ni saya ada satu Canva punya section yang kosong yang I hope that everybody could participate later on dalam link ni. Mungkin setengah orang nak tahu kan macam mana contohnya kalau bila kita dah ada Canva and then we want to actually to allow our students to be co-editing dengan kita. So sebenarnya kita boleh pergi dekat share and then kita boleh just anyone with the link and then kita boleh select lah sama ada view, comment or edit and kita copy link. So right now I have copied the link. So I'm going to give to every one of you to be able to join this Canva link. Okay. So sekarang cuba klik the link dekat chat tu. You please check. Please click the link at the chat section and then please join. Okay. Everybody should join and try to go now to page number 1 dulu. Okay, page number 1. Don't do anything just yet. Jadi saya akan brief lah in general just macam mana nak guna Canva ni in just some basic feature so that everybody can join. Mungkin ada yang tak akan dapat join. That is okay. Alright, that is fine because when I put you in the group later, at least if you have 2 members who actually can join, who can use the link, that's also okay lah. Maksudnya maybe the group need to do the share screen. Okay, share screen and everybody else brainstorm and maybe 2 of you can start to form take the logo lah, form the logo and motto and so on lah. Right. Okay, now we have roughly about 20 who are joining. Anybody else who have not joined, please do so. Please click on the link in the chat section. Please join. Okay, kita buat tutorial sikit. So everybody can go to page 2. So everybody, if let's say everybody can go to page 2 Page 2 here. So for example, if let's say you want to add text, you want to add text, you can just type T je. T for Tazli, then it will appear your paragraph text like that. Try to do that. Type text. Okay, when you type text, then it will appear in the center of it. So kita boleh drag and tarik keluar lah. Okay, and tarik keluar, and then we can have it because it will appear at the center of it. Okay, terus buat box ni. Okay, we type text. So everybody know lah. That's the fastest way in order for you to type text. You can just type T and then the paragraph text will appear lah. And then you can start edit in it. Another way of adding text, you can go to the left and then you can add the text over there lah. So there is a heading, subheading and so on lah. you can also add that. Okay, so that is actually about adding text lah. Alright. So kalau kita nak, saya delete okay. So sekarang ni kalau kita nak letak rectangles, okay, just a shape of rectangles, you just type R. So if you type R, then there will be a shape of rectangles appear. Okay, so that is R. So you can actually make a box of it, and then lepas tu you can resize lah. You can resize it further. That's how we can use this. Okay, semua tahu R. Semua dah tulis R. Okay, apa? Saya delete. Okay, so sekarang ni kita, jangan kacau page 3 please. Semua kat page 2 je Just come to page 2. Okay, so sekarang kalau kita nak tak circle, kita boleh type C. So if you type C, then you'll be able to get circle. Okay. Alright. So everybody now excitingly participating. Okay. So this is actually how you can use Canva just to cut short lah. Everything lah kan. Okay. Okay, saya delete Saya akan delete page ni. Okay, masih nak try. Alright. Okay. So after this, saya akan saya akan delete page ni Page 2 ni saya akan delete. We can hold on for a while. Kejap. Dah boleh stop dulu. Nanti kita boleh guna features tu nanti banyak lagi. So nanti for those who have not actually tried Canva, there also tab of elements kat sini. So kat elements ni you can search anything and then you can just add on any kind of feature dalam ni. Also you can also upload your own media if you want to. And you can also use photos. For example, so you can search photos here and then you can add on photos. Okay. And then you can pick your own style, even if you want to add videos and so on. Banyak lagi lah feature-feature yang lain yang that you can learn from it. And perhaps later on if you want, sebab tu that's why saya kata saya dah goodbye PowerPoint lama dah. I don't use PowerPoint anymore. So most of the slide I'm using Canva, and at the same time I'm using this as part of the collaboration tools lah. Collaboration tools among the students. Okay. Okay. So everybody have already participated Kita ada kat sini. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this page, second page ni. Jangan delete page lain So I'm going to delete right now. So what I'm going to do next is actually we're going to put in your breakout session. So those who are actually here, I'm going to put in the breakout session a group of 6. And then after that, you will need to be able to go back to this and do these activities lah. First thing first ialah ta'aruf dulu, get to know each other. And then after that, we're going to proceed with team names, logo, motto, teams rules and regulation. Okay, so let me do the breakout. So we have 73. So let me roughly put about 10 group. Okay, I'm going to have a 10 groups here. So nanti for those who actually be in room 1, you just need to go to room 1, team 1. For those who in room 2, just need to paste room 2 and so on. Okay, it depends on which group that you belong to. So I'm going to create assignments right now. Move automatically. So some of you will have 7, some of you will have 6 in the group. So I'm going to start the breakout session. Okay. So we're going to do this activity roughly about, I would say 20 minutes. So 10:50, we're going to stop at 11:10. Clear? Right, I'm going to start breakout session now. Please join the room, which has been already allocated for you. Okay, ada bilik yang tak complete lagi ni. Saya akan, I will actually need to move some of you here and there.
Cakap dengan host. PDAE ada tak?
Ya, Dr. Hana.
Kami sebenarnya grup 2 tapi ada tim lain buat dekat grup 2. Jadi saya tak boleh terima apa kat situ. Jadi macam tapi dia tolong buatkan untuk grup 2 lah. Cuma masalahnya takut nanti ada grup lain yang kosong
Oh, okey.
Rasanya grup yang tengah kosong sekarang ni grup ada beberapa grup sebenarnya.
Tapi masih ada slide yang
Ya?
masih ada tempat yang kosong tu kan?
Tak ada, bila saya nak letak saya tak boleh lah sebab nanti kena delete.
Tim 2?
Saya tim 2. Kami tim 2 sebenarnya tapi ada orang lain yang buat dekat situ.
Kalau saya tengok tim 2 kosong.
Sekejap
Hello CDAE.
Oh,
Di sini.
okay. Sorry. Alright. Okay,
Ya, CDAE kan?
Ya, Dr. Lim.
Jadi tadi saya speaker saya tak boleh on. Jadi saya log out dan log in again. Dan saya dah tunggu sini ada boleh tolong saya hantar balik ke team ID ya. ID.
Doktor ingat tak group number berapa?
Group 8. ID
8
tadi I hantar chat sana tapi tak ada orang tak ada orang respon.
Okay, I hantar you sekarang.
Okay, thank you.
Right, semua everyone dah balik ke sini. Ada yang dah siap, ada yang masih lagi tengah struggle. It's okay. Take your time nanti. No problem. Nanti masa kita punya break tengah hari pun boleh sempat siapkan. Tapi I hope that you can get already the taste of doing collaborative work together lah kot. Maybe you want to share something from in the chat section. Kalau what actually that you get from the activities that you have done. Any takeaways from that when you are doing the collaborative activities, buat ice breaking? Anyone? Boleh tak share dekat chat? Share dekat chat. What actually that learn from each other. So you're learning about empathy. What else that you learn from the collaborative activities just now?
You learn to exchange ideas.
Okay, good. What maksudnya possible tak collaboration to being done online?
Yes, it is possible. Everyone has to give and take and cooperate with each other. I'm not sure if students can do that. We are adults, matured adults.
Yeah,
so we were
sure.
able to do it, yeah.
Right. Okay, that's good. Very interesting. How do you find using Canva for the collaboration? Lots of interaction and collaboration. Baik Nuclear.
Great.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Right. Give me for a while Kejap saya kena pause sekejap. Ada call pula dari utusan. Okay. Okay, so now you have actually interesting, enjoyable, interactive communication skills and engagement. Okay. Right. So you have learned, I think you have done a lot lah. I mean in terms of like ada group yang buat motivated lecturers. Nama group ni Ada group ni Girls Power. What else? We have here Flipped-Educators group. The name is Flipped-Educators. Durian and Coffee. The motto is exist in harmony. Okay. And then I'm not sure about the name of this group. Dr. Mazia ni apa nama group ni?
Actually, we have one member from Iran, right?
Right.
Dr. Pantia. So we use 7 as the name Haf in Persian.
Ha. So,
H-A-F-T, Haf.
Hafs. Oh, okay. The name is Hafs.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have Hybrid Booster group, and then we also have Dynamic Septagon. Okay. So after this, I will address this group based on their names lah. So if let's say I call Hybrid Booster, you know who you are. Haf, you know who you are. Durian and Coffee, DNC, you know who you are, and so on lah. Okay. So the next activity, the next thing that we're going to do is actually, okay, just a quick question that I would like to ask you. When you are actually forming a group for your students, among your students, for example, okay, what is actually your criteria when you want to form a group? Because I think this is important when we're going to address about cooperative learning this afternoon. We're going to address about cooperative learning this afternoon. It's very important about team formation. Okay, so what are the criteria of a good team formation for you? Do you allow the student to form the group themselves? Or you actually select on your own group, assign your own group? Is it being random, or you have a specific criteria for it? Perhaps you can share with me in the Mentimeter. What are the criteria of a good team formation? If let's say you want to form a group among your students, what will be your criteria in order for you to form that particular group? Randomly selected. Most of the time, students decide among them. Okay. They know each other well. Okay. Allow students to form themselves. Right. Get along together. Okay. Complementing skills. All right. what else that you feel that, okay, I need to use this kind of randomly assigned, try to have balanced gender and race in the group. Okay. Randomization, have diversity is good thing, set a specific achievable goal, research. They are on the same page, active participation. Okay, I always open to the student themselves to form their own group. Okay. Saya lebih kurang more towards like I wanted to know when actually that when you want to form a group, how do you actually form the group for your student? Do you allow the student to form themselves, or actually you you randomly assign the group, ataupun you have a specific ways of doing so? I go according to their capabilities, above average, average and below average. In this way, they learn and motivate each other. Okay. Okay. Alright, so maksudnya you have different ways of actually forming the group for your students lah, which is fine, not a problem. But I'm going to share with you what would be the best practice after this lah, when you actually wanted to form a group, okay, for your students, so that the students can learn all the important necessary skills while you actually conducting flipped classroom activities. Alright, the next question that I would like to ask is actually, in your opinion, okay, what are the possible challenges, issues that you shall anticipate as students and lecturers? Okay, when you are conducting flipped classroom, katalah lepas ni, I want to conduct a flipped classroom. So what are the possible challenges that you should anticipate if, let's say, you are a student? And the next question is later on, is about if you are a lecturer, so what are the challenges that you will face? So right now, try to put ourselves in the student punya shoes. Okay, okay, kita dah, contohnya lecturer dah bagi buat grouping, kita dah buat team building tadi. Lepas tu right now, like students dah masuk ke kelas and then they need to face flipped classroom kind of activities. So, try to anticipate, if let's say you are a student, what will be the possible challenges that you will anticipate when you undergo this flipped classroom? Apa problem yang you akan hadapi? Boleh tak kongsikan? Sekarang kita masuk diri kita as a student dulu. Kejap lagi kita akan jawab as a lecturer what we will face. So, in this mentimeter.com ni, in your opinion, what are the possible challenges that you will face as a student? Apa yang kita akan dapat as a student? Limited internet access, too many flip class, yes. I'm listener only, I'm less reactive, I do nothing. Members not cooperative, limited internet access, okay. Timing to prep, slow learner. I always have these students always say, I am a slow learner. And saya selalu scold orang, don't always label yourself as slow learner. Nanti jadi betul. Overwhelmed with material, feel lost, right? Okay. Timing to prep, too tired, piggyback, which is riding on others, let others do the job, I'll just sit down and see. Unclear instruction, okay. Opportunist, resistance. What else? Oh, there's a lot of things. Freeloaders. Where to start? Okay, where to start? Love last minute job. Level of understanding is not same. Blended with others is some people may have a social anxiety, right? When they have to work with others. Surface learner. Okay. Talking to themselves. Incomplete task brief. Okay. Differences in thoughts. Okay, so yeah, we can have a lot of issues actually. And these are actually real issues. These are the real issues that many of us will be facing. When we as a lecturer, we start to think as a student, we feel that there are certain, of course, there are going to be certain kind of problems that will exist. And we want to address this later on. Okay? Technical issues, right? Oh, okay. I think the thought here of too many flip class is very important. That's why we need to talk to our colleagues, for example, because I would say if let's say you are gonna have a flip classroom in one semester, at least one class is sufficient. If let's say you start to have more than one courses for the same batch doing the flip classroom, you may need to deal somehow. Not all the time you do the flip activities, because flip classroom ni it can be conducted throughout the whole semester, or it can be conducted partially. And usually I will advise the lecturer who wanted to start with flip classroom, start first with the most difficult topic, because you want to give extra attention to the class, and then after that we can slowly grow our materials. But don't start with one whole semester. Don't start straight away with one whole semester. Okay, you can see a lot of possible problems that is going to be faced by the students when they are actually going through flipped classroom. We are going to address that one later. So now the next question, what are the possible challenges that you shall anticipate as lecturers or teachers when you are conducting flipped classroom? What are possible challenges that you shall anticipate as lecturers? Huge number of students, unresponsive students, okay. Lack of experience, no response from them, choosing the right flip materials for all. Yep. Cooperation from others, okay, to make student understand, student do not focus. A lot of planning, yep, they're gonna be consuming a lot of time. Keeps more students. Kejap ada, kejap hilang kan. Depressed students, equal opportunity for everyone for learning. Focus, okay. Fairness in terms of evaluation. Students do not focus, so that's gonna be some kind of challenge. Okay. They are quiet. Students are silent, not participating. Active participation. Student trust Google more. Okay. Preparation time. They lacking attitude, changing mindset, extra work to interest. Okay. Make interesting lecture. That's also a challenge. Okay. You have focusing on you have a problem with passive learners. Students copy and paste. Unmotivated, less coaching. I can see that lack of coaching from others, from those who are actually doing this. Lack of training, perhaps, kan. That's also one thing that which could be challenges lah in conducting the flipped classroom. Okay. Go on. Alright. So these are the some of also the findings that I got from different kind of workshops that I have conducted before lah. For example, like the students' problem could be not enough scaffolding, tak dapat bantuan, fear of losing mark when absent, extra work, time consuming, student need to think more, student have social anxiety. And on the lecturer side, fewer pre-class participation, innovation in class not as KPI. Jadi tak nak buat lah sebab bukan KPI kan. Students are not ready, disappointment with the outcome received from the student. Dia patah hati when actually students say something bad about him, about her, then decided not to proceed with it. Extra job, need to be creative, need to acquire new skill. And also the students said there's lacking of engagement and participation. Students are becoming resistant, and then students not enthusiastic to go through the materials. Uncontrolled pack, which means that the students can easily just go out of it is haywire haywire punya situation when you conduct the activities. Increase of student learning time. the student said that I have to spend a lot more in order for me to study. And then lecturers pula on the time constraint to complete the syllabus, not properly prepared the assessment rubric, varying the activities in class. This is also another issue. Lecturers afraid to let go. All this while, they are the one who actually the spotlight. Kalau the spotlight tu, they are putting right on to directly to him or her. And then now they need to switch the way how they do things and afraid to let go. Okay, preparation time increases. Okay, and of course, student will have facing this kind of dialogue. For example, I'm not going to bother to watch the video. I can surely copy my friends from the activities in class, copy and paste. I think the activities in the class are too complex. I cannot handle this alone. Okay, or perhaps on the lecturer side, they will question. Now I give them video to watch. Now what's next? What's next to do? How do I ensure the teamwork skills can be achieved? The students are passive. Okay, are passive. So how do I make sure that the teamwork skills to be achieved? And student will still be dependent on me after I give them videos. So how actually I can make sure that the students are not dependent on me, so that they be able to depend on their friends as well. I don't need the same volunteers over and over again to answer my question in the class. So how do I make sure that all the students are participating? And the question next is why there are still free riders in the class. So how do I address this? So these are the things that we want to think about, and how best that we can actually address these split classroom issues. It is a real issues. It is something that we may want to have a look at how we can solve this problem. Okay, so the next activity that I'm going to do, I'm going to put you back into your group. Okay, into your group, balik kepada group masing-masing. So for those yang tadi apa, dynamic septagon will go back to dynamic septagon. DNC will meet back in DNC. So what you're going to do is we go back to this Padlet. Okay, we go back to this Padlet. So everybody click on the Padlet. And then you'll be able to click on item 3. Okay, item 3. So if you click on item 3, there are actually 4 reflections, okay, from different kind of educators, okay, from 4 different kind of lecturers who are teaching different kind of courses. And of course, the reflection, there are 4 reflection. So in each group, okay, in each group, one of you will need to assign who read what. Okay, in each group you need to assign who read what. So since there are actually 6 or 7 of you, perhaps there are one reflection should be read by 2 or more 2 people lah. Okay, first, so make sure all the reflection ada yang baca dulu, and then after that the remaining will take some other reflection as well and further read it. And then after that you read it, okay, after you read that, task is actually in your own team. After that, you need to take turn to explain each other reflection. Okay, you need to take turn to explain each reflection. And after that, you need to brainstorm what should be done to make a successful flipped classroom. So based on the reflection, after you have read one reflection and everybody else have actually replied, have explained to you about others' reflection. So brainstorm together as a team what actually need to be done to make a successful flipped classroom. Okay, what need to be done to make a successful classroom. So everybody dah dapat kan? Boleh dapat access the reflection. Okay, everybody should be able to access the reflection. Now I'm going to put you back into the breakout session for the next 20 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes. So that you can spend time, maybe 5 minutes of reading. And then after that, another 7 minutes of explaining. Everybody take turn to explain. And then the remaining minutes too, you will need to jot down. Maybe just appoint a moderator. Just jot down what are the things that makes a flipped classroom successful. Okay. So nanti selepas dah jot down everything, you can go to Mentimeter later on to share from your finding, from your team findings, what makes a flipped classroom become successful. Okay. I hope that you are clear with the task. First thing first, read on your own. Assign dulu, assign which material to read. And then second one, read on your own. The third one is take turn to explain to each other. So if let's say two of you reading it, so you can complement each other to explain it further. And finally, you need to brainstorm as a team what should be done to make a successful flipped classroom. And then after that, we share the Mentimeter. So now 11:42, we're gonna stop at 2 minutes for the breakout activities. Okay, so the breakout. Okay, we're going to start the breakout session. For those who have not been assigned, kalau nak masuk, saya akan masukkan kepada group yang ada lah. Alright, you can join the discussion. So I'm going to start the breakout session now. For those who are actually terleft ke something like that, you please just write down in the chat section which group that you belong to, so I can assign you over there. I think Dr. Pantia here masuk breakout session 7, right? So I will assign you to 7. Okay. Group 3, Dr. Anwar saya pindahkan ke group lain so that you can join. Farm Usman. Anybody else who like to masuk group mana-mana, then let me know kalau dia nak join group lagi to join the discussion.
YouTube Premium gives you ad-free videos, mobile downloads, and background play. With it, you also get YouTube Music Premium, a music streaming app that has playlists mixed just for you, and the world's largest catalog of songs to enjoy uninterrupted. Try YouTube Premium for 1 month on us and get into what you're into. Keep music videos going while you text and watch uninterrupted. Try YouTube Premium on us.
Okay, minta maaf terpaksa cut short discussion. Ada tengah discuss lagi sebab kita pun nak running out of time sebab kita nak stop 12.30 sekejap lagi Tapi tak apa, saya tengok sebab dah ada I've started to see that you actually share. So this is already something that you have start to share. Maybe perhaps you can continue the sharing. For example, like when to be discussed, kan, you have actually go through these 4 reflections. I think some of you also misunderstood when we go to item 3, item number 2, for example, they're looking at item 2 here. Item 2 here in the Padlet is actually the answer for activity 1 that we conducted just now. You can do your own reading here lah. But item 3 in here that we have 4 reflections. So reflection 1, and then reflection 2, reflection 3, and 4. There are 4 reflections here, right? And then you have read through this reflection, right? You have to read through the reflection here, and you have explained to each other about what you read. There are anybody can guess which one is my own reflection tak? Which reflection that belongs to me? Ada yang tak habis lagi? Okay.
First one, I guess.
No, not the first one. Mine is actually the last one. I'm the last one.
The fourth one.
The fourth one. The fourth one was my reflection, my own reflection. Other than that, there are some other reflection. Okay, the recent award winner, Anugerah Akademik Negara, was the third reflection. This was in 2016 lah. She won recently from UTP, Anugerah Akademik Negara for engineering punya so her reflection is the third one. Okay. So you have read all these reflections, and I'm asking you actually what actually makes a successful flipped classroom ingredient. I think some of you have shared here. First of all, for example, like there must be a clear objective, element of gamification, not too many flip session, needs to know deeper, interest that motivated of learning. Okay, there should be some kind of activities, cooperative learning and teamwork activities. Engaging all students, gallery walk, debate, videos to relate to the theory, movie to find the components relate to the theory, solve a problem that occur using a theory of methodology they have learned. See, this is I think mostly from reflection number 2. Cooperative learning, teamwork activities, proper planning, gamification, clear instruction, internet needs to know deeper. Okay. Sufficient time to perform. Class is small. Okay, I think the class size is very important as well when you want to conduct flipped classroom activities. Lecturers need to know the flip well to design the lessons. Start early with students and not to cram too many topics. I think you have learned from the reflection number 3 when she actually just started reflection for final year student, which actually may not be that what do you call that, advantage to the students lah when they are actually already in final year. So we may want to start early when you want to conduct flipped classroom. So we must have engaging activities. We must have variety of approach in delivering the content. Dr. Razif here, I think a successful flip should be triggered by curiosity and manageable amount of knowledge. Yes, it's a good one. Structured and proper learning, good Wi-Fi, internet connections, appropriate timeline, scaffolding students from the unknown to the known, okay, which means that the element of scaffolding must be there. Inclusion of all group of students through the combination of flipped classroom and traditional classroom. So that is actually somehow very important lah when we are conducting the flipped classroom. So thank you very much for coining these particular keywords in order for us to make successful flipped classroom. But I think there is a discussion that I've heard eavesdropping lah tadi. I think masa dalam group Prof. Razif mention pasal not all the students who will go through the video, right? Maksudnya macam mana? Because some of the students will not go through the video. So what to do? So antaranya contohnya, yes, that's very true. Some of the students at the first start, not many of them will go through the video. So one of way of doing that is perhaps you can actually give them a pop quiz. A quiz just to understand. And you can say that in the first place, as a part of scaffolding, you say, okay, this quiz have marks in it. So nak tak nak, the students need to go for that particular video and they need to attempt for the quiz. That is one of the ways that you can encourage students to watch the video. There are of course, there are students as well who perhaps later on did not watch the video. One of the tips as well that we can do is we can allow the students to come to the class, make the student, they will come to the class and we'll just conduct any kind of recap and do activities. Okay, do the activities, complete the activities, and after that, when they completed the activities, they will start to realize that, okay, I need to understand more. So that's why they will revisit the video. I have also students like that who actually do the activities first, and then only then, oh, okay, now I can start to see what is actually that I'm lacking, that I need to read. So I go through the video. Because some of the students, they are not sequential learner, they are global learner. They are global learner ni, dia, for example, like they need to have a helicopter view of it first, then only then it's making sense for them. So that's also possible. That's one of the thing that we can do. Cumanya, kita ni, as I said lah, we need to be consistent lah, because we know that some of the students will not watch the video. For example, if let's say the student said, if you ask, have you watched the video? The student said no. You just proceed with the activities. Of course lah, the activities too is not going to be having a deeper punya understanding from the student, but somehow you need to teach the students to be a bit more disciplined in it. So you just proceed with the activities. So after that, then later on the student will realize that, okay, this lecturer, you cannot play with him. So nak tak nak, you need to go to the video first. So that's what you could do lah. Alright. This is a bit tough love sikit lah. Tough love, tapi it's something that is that's working for the student, insyaAllah. Alright, so these are some things that you have coined. So what actually that I'm going to bring you straight away in terms of what other people have also coined from the workshops, different workshops that we have. For example, like this group, they said in terms of the stage of the flip, follow the feedback from the student, good time management. Lecturer has to explain why flipped classroom, proper planning, students have to be mentally prepared, and the strong motivation for the student as well as internet connection. As one mentioned, I think Dr. Maziani mentioned just now, dia kata kena ada internet. Kalau tak ada internet, memang tak jalan lah flipped classroom. That was very true lah sebenarnya. Okay. And also when we talk about what makes the flipped classroom successful is the award, marks, patience of the lecturers and as well as the student, because you may fail the first time. Maksudnya tak semestinya first time kita buat tu, it will eventually be successful. So you do this because you believe in it. That's very important. If you do this for the sake of just want to try it and just to say it's gonna be a fail approach, it's gonna be a fail approach. It will turn out to be a fail approach. But if you believe in this approach, then you conduct it, and then you just do it slowly, you will actually see the success stories later on. It may be not in your first class, but it will be eventually they will be there. Okay, proper preparation, closure and reflection, very important. Okay, fun activities, and you need to start small which is using a partial flipped classroom first. Motivation from the lecturers is also important. Try to vary activities in class, and student need to see tangible outcomes. Okay, and never give up. This is also very important. Never give up on delivering the flipped classroom, and don't be disheartened with the feedback. Of course, there are students who will not be liking it, and students need to see the reason why actually that we conducting the flipped classroom. So you need to actually come up with the reason, the explanation why. So what makes a flipped classroom successful also is in terms of the activities in the class size, team evaluation, take the feedback, effective if it is combined with active learning, motivation of the students, lecturers' motivation, and good IT infrastructure. So this is what actually I coined is as six important ingredient lah sebenarnya to make sure that we achieve successful flipped classroom. Okay, the first one is faculty motivation, faculty training, appropriate assessment, technology, which is IT and connectivity, infrastructure and facilities, which is the classroom, as well as the students' readiness. So these are 6 elements that need to be there just to make sure that we achieve a successful flipped classroom. So when we talk about faculty motivation, of course, there must be first thing first is our intrinsic motivation, that we really want to achieve more than what we are doing right now for the students, because we want to make sure that the students not only get the knowledge but also get the skills that we really want for the student. So that's why it is very important for us to nurture our own intrinsic motivation, which is our own passion. But of course, on top of that, the management, the administration, the department need to recognize and reward the faculty members who are actually doing this. This will be part of the extrinsic motivation to do so lah. So perhaps lepas ni the faculty will start to recognize more and give incentive, for example. So that is also could help to make sure to leverage the motivation of the faculty members. The second one is what we call as faculty training. So whenever that you are going for the training, for example, like if you want to conduct a flipped classroom, of course you need to go for training. We cannot just simply reading maybe not sufficient. You need to experience it yourself. What are the activities need to be done? What kind of activities is it? So that you can have some ideas about it. So this afternoon, petang ni, we will actually look at what kind of activities that we could conduct in a flipped classroom, flipped cooperative learning environment. So those are the things that I'm going to explain later on lah. For example, like you may come across team games tournament, for example, fishbowl activities. These are the things that we will come across after the lunch session. And then the techniques should be, the training should be comprehensive. There is a clarity of the techniques. It also injecting motivation of the faculties as well as hands-on experience. Okay. And then you need to have appropriate assessment lah. Whenever that you conduct the flipped classroom, you need to have appropriate assessment. For example, in terms of peer rating, how do we actually peer rate the students peer rate their friends? Okay. how does the peer evaluate when the students conducted peer teaching? How do we make sure there is a blend of formative and summative assessment inside there? And the assessment should be a team-based assessment. Okay, team-based assessment come with suitable rubric, and it is shouldn't be a conventional way of doing the assessment. How to incorporate marks in flipped classroom and align to BPK. BPK stand for what, Dr. Maziani?
In USM, we call it borang penawaran khusus, where it's a birth certificate for our course lah, which we actually determine how many percentage of the marks should be given to the assessment.
Right,
For
right.
example,
Maksudnya
like
ada
assignment.
assignment, test, quiz and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah.
You
So
can do that.
yeah,
Yeah,
but let's say in my course lah, for example, I only in the BPK there's only assignment and test. So participation tu I cannot put anywhere unless I sorok je masuk dalam assignment. Yeah. So
actually, you can make it as part of the team assignment. Participation tu you can make as part of the team assignment. So for example, if let's say you give assignment as a team, so after that, this is where actually sometimes I think there's some misconception about peer rating tadi ni. Peer rating ni is not a separate marks tau. It's actually a peer rating tu it becomes a coefficient factor for the team assignment. So for example, like if let's say you give an assignment and the assignment, you reward the assignment, a team assignment as 80, for example, but because of the students have a different coefficient, they will be having different kind of marks. So for example, like 80 times by 1, you get 80. But 80 times by 0.9, then the student ended up only get 72 because he or she did not participate much in completing that kind of assignment. It doesn't mean that peer rating to separate now, but peer rating is inclusive inside there. I can share with you, remind me after this afternoon on how actually a good peer rating could be done and incorporate in the marks. Jawab ke Dr. Maziani?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Alright, thank you. So that is one of the assessment that we have to look at. That is the criteria number 3. Criteria number 4 is we are looking at technology, which means that we should have internet. Internet should be there. Whenever that we have physical activities, there should be an in-class technology there. The students should be able to bring their own device. But if let's say they are doing online, so if let's say you want to incorporate to make sure there is collaboration happening, so we can actually allow the students to do so lah. Bring their own device, as well as to make sure that should be a smooth connection. And in terms of item number 5 is actually we look at infrastructure and facilities, which is within the classroom itself. For example, like if let's say we are doing it physical, so it should be a smart classroom, comfortable learning environment, should be a collaborative arrangements, properly maintained, and the space for moving around. I think in USM also you have this kind of space, right? So you should make full use of it by doing it as part of the flipped classroom approach, so that the students can have longer time. Because if let's say you're just conducting lecture in this space, I think that is a waste of space lah. But if let's say you are actually having a lecture beforehand, the students come in and do the activities, this is where actually they can benefit a lot from doing this kind of space, space to move around. And number 5 is actually looking at this is supposed to be number 6. Number 6 is looking at students' readiness. So students' readiness is very important. So because student need to see the clear link between the approach and the end target. So they need to be really prepped about why we are doing this for them. And that's why to make them stay motivated. Students' participation is also important, which should be collaborative. Okay, flipped classroom ni, it will be only successful if let's say we conduct it in a collaborative in nature. Okay, which means that the activities that we do inside the class should be collaborative, such that they are actually talking to each other and they discuss with each other. Adaptable to changes is also important. And the students are activated in terms of the motivational state. They are motivated, they're willing to persevere, and they are accountable to do pre-class tasks, which means that before we start the class, we need to make sure that they are accountable. how to make them accountable, as I mentioned earlier lah. There are several things that we can scaffold just to make sure that they're accountable. And finally is the clarity of the task. So how do we make sure that the students are clear about the task that is being given to them? That will end up to have a student readiness. So if let's say we go to this diagram, you'll be able to see that there's a lot of parameters that we need to consider just to make sure that we can conduct a successful flipped classroom model. Okay, so there are 6 elements lah altogether that I coined from a lot of discussion that has been going through from the reflection itself. 6 areas ni kalau kita dapat fulfill, that's very good. So that we can ensure a better quality of a flipped classroom model. But as I said lah, the first time that we're doing this, of course, there's going to be some kind of hiccup, there's going to be some kind of problem and so on. Okay, saya nak tanya lah, just want to know why I make you to go through reading the reflection on your own, dissect, discussing and everything when actually the answer is already there. Why do you think I'm doing that? Anybody would like to respond to the chat? The tidy. So that you can compare, you are learning by doing. What else? You practice by doing. Okay. Yeah. Right. Reflect ourselves to actually look at what other practice. Because that's the thing, right? Sometimes we want to make sure that students get to know everything. But we forget that by just giving a lecture to this, students may sometimes they kata, what is actually that? It doesn't make sense to them. But after they go through the experience, they actually have to do the individual reading. They actually have to put the discussion, have the discussion going on. And when they listen to the lecture that you give as part of the closure, so it makes sense to them. If you feel that, okay, that makes sense because I know I have some preamble, some ideas about what is actually this lecturer is talking about, right? So that's why it is good to always do that lah. Sometimes you have the answer, doesn't mean that you have to give the answer straight away. Sometimes you have to make sure that the students go through the process of learning, which is by reading, by discussing, and so on. Only then it making sense for them to really learn about what you're trying to teach them. That's what we could do. Even actually, if you don't conduct flipped classroom, we can do that. We can do that in our own classroom. It doesn't mean that you need to go from slide to slide, one lecture to another lecture, but you can give activities to them so that they can actually making sense about the material that we are actually teaching them. That's why I always say that teaching is making learning happen. Okay, teaching is not disseminating information. Teaching is about making learning happen. So the learning process happened just now lah. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop that for now. Ngam-ngam 12.30. Alright, that's good. We are going actually after this afternoon, we're going to look into the element of cooperative learning. Okay, and then we're going to actually look at what kind of activities that we can use to conduct in our class. And finally, we will actually look at how we can plan our flipped classroom. Okay, so I'll see you back at 2:30 PM insyaAllah. Boleh, everyone? Take care. Kita jumpa lagi kejap lagi ya. Jangan ponteng.
Terima kasih Dr. Tazli.
Thank you.
For USM staff, please fill out the first attendance link. It's in chat.
Okay, insyaAllah jumpa petang ni kejap lagi pukul 2.30. Alright, Assalamualaikum.
Salam, terima kasih Dr. Tazli.
Thank you.
Salam, terima kasih.